Okay, let's get this show on the road. Thank you so much for joining us for the monthly ramp up presented to you by Franchise Ramp. My name is Nick Hansen, Director of Creative at Franchise Ramp, and I'm super excited for the latest edition of this webinar series that includes a mix of in the trenches knowledge and high level strategy, along with a featured client share. Today, we're super excited to have Amber Stockdale from Pure Barre Lake Oswego, Portland Pearl District, and Portland Lloyd, Oregon. Our awesome Director of Franchisee Success, Beth Boley, will conduct the interview. We're also excited to get a marketing update from Franchise Ramp CEO Brian Holmes, President Peter Hansen, and Club Pilates franchisee owner Adrian Holmes, and that will open our webinar.
Nick, thanks for the introduction. So the topic that we wanted to talk about a little bit today, and the reason that I have, Adrian and Pete on with me is Adrian and Pete are two of the best franchise operators that I know. And I know as a lot of us are coming out of COVID, we're facing, new and different challenges, and specifically one of those being challenges around employees in the fitness industry and the beauty industry. And really, it doesn't matter at this point, any service related industry. Employee challenges are probably more of an issue than they've ever been in my career. I was thinking about the lead up to this conversation. I was thinking about how many employees like I've had over the years, Adrian and I have had over the years, and how many employees Pete has had over the years. And I think that there was one tax season when Adrian and I were Liberty Tax Service franchisees where we distributed almost 200 W-2s in 1 year. So we've definitely learned a lot through the years about, employee challenges, getting people hired, getting people trained, getting them up and running in kind of a short period of time. But it's different today than it's ever been before for a lot of different reasons. So Adrian, welcome to the call. Pete, thanks for jumping on. So the way I wanted to start out was I just wanted you both to give, Pete, you go first, just a little bit of like an intro of where your operations are, how many locations that you have, and give a little context for the listeners of, your organization.
Yeah, of course. Excited to be on as a franchisee and not president of Franchise Ramp. So I was just talking to a franchisee earlier who's just starting off in Yoga 6. So that was a lot of fun to see where he's at in his journey. So I started off as a Liberty Tax franchisee 8, 9, 10 years ago. And got to 5 locations there in the Minneapolis market. That's where I live with my wife and my 2 kids here in Minneapolis, the north side of Minneapolis. And so about 5 years ago, heard about this thing called Club Pilates and thought, oh, that's crazy. Like, I don't know anything about Pilates. And then I got in touch with Brian and Adrian, and they were like, no, it's really a real thing. And it's a lot of fun and it's a good business to be in. So I got into that, jumped into that, and we ended up buying 3 territories in Arizona. So we still have those 3 original territories in Arizona. And then I live in Minneapolis, and about 2 years ago, we decided to open some more in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so in Arizona, I have a really fantastic district manager that used to be a member and just fell in love with Pilates and it just has a great background and was looking to get back into the workforce after being a mom. And so really fortunate and blessed to have her there. And then in Ohio, what we ended up doing was taking one of my initial managers in Arizona, and he's one of our sweat equity partners in Ohio and the managing operating partner up there in Ohio, where we have 2 locations currently and looking to build out our 3rd. And so, really, I guess now at this point, I'm a little bit more insulated from the people issues and the staffing issues because I have 2 really strong sort of district managers or integrators in each place. So.
Mm-hmm. So what does your organization look like from like a revenue or health perspective versus what it looked like during COVID, pre-COVID, where are you now?
Yeah, our Arizona studios are over 100% of pre-pandemic revenue. So we've seen like a huge bounce back. We hit that in April, like we were over, I think in March, we were getting close. And so really ecstatic and excited about that. Like, I just think the long-term trends in fitness are good. Like, I think people know that they have to get out and they have to be healthy now. And to be healthy, you do have to be around other individuals, and people are willing to take that risk for the long-term betterment of their health. And so I'm really bullish and optimistic about the fitness industry. So it gets me excited.
Okay. Adrian, give a little rundown of your operation.
So we have 5 locations in the Sacramento area, and I have 1 district manager, 5 different managers, a couple front desk per location, and then a bazillion instructors. I don't know how many, but a lot. And the biggest challenge is obviously staffing, so that's why we're talking. And then we just started pre-sale on Yoga 6 here in Austin. We have the rights to do up to 6 locations, so that kind of got put on hold with COVID, but now we're back and have our first manager, and everything is going great from a sales perspective there.
Yeah, so Adrian and I, we've been in franchising since 2006. So at one point we owned 19 Liberty Tax Service locations. Like I said, had over 200 seasonal employees. And then when we discovered Club Pilates in 2016, that's kind of when we got into the fitness industry. The fitness industry is like a huge passion for Adrian and something that we've really enjoyed jumping into. So Pete, when we talk about challenges when it comes to hiring, retaining employees right now, what does that look like in your organization? What have you learned over the years could really help franchisees who are struggling right now when it comes to employees?
Yeah, I think right now is really, really tough because there's this dislocation in the labor market where you have a lot of people dropping out and not as many people coming in. They're dropping out for various reasons. So yeah, I think it's a time of stress for a lot of franchisees. I know it is for us. We've got some people going out on maternity leave, and we've had a little bit of sort of friction and have lost some people. I think we've been able to weather that a little bit because I think a few things. I think core values. I'm a big core value believer. I'm a huge believer in EOS. We use the entrepreneurial operating system. If you've heard me talk before, I can't rave enough about it. At Franchise Ramp, we use an implementer. At our Club Pilates, we self-implement, and the very first thing you start with is core values and making sure that everyone who gets into your organization is a core value fit. It's really tough in the fitness industry, especially within Club Pilates, because to find those core value fits because the labor pool is so small. But we've worked really hard at that over the last 3 years is just, and we talk about it, how do we get 90% of the people in our organization are the right people, do they fit our core values? And so we went through a core value process as an organization like 3 years ago to figure out what those were as our organization. And so our first one's positive enthusiastic. So we want people that are just naturally positive enthusiastic. Our next one is we want people that just have an innate desire to support their community and support their team. So, team players. And then the last one is grow or die. And so, we want people that understand that it's important to be growing and getting better and challenging and stretching ourselves. So we actually did a survey. We do a quarterly employee survey. And I think we had like 90% of our people were able to list those core values just word for word, and they tell stories about them. We do a core value nomination contest every quarter where they nominate their peers throughout the quarter, and then we have awards at the end of the quarter. And so I think that helps because someone described core values to me one time as like the blood pumping through your organization, and if that blood's pumping on its own, then it's a way easier organization to run versus if you got to do the pumping on your own. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So for any franchisees that just thought, man, I don't have all that dialed in my organization. Pete, did you have that all dialed in the first time you were a franchisee with Liberty?
No. And that's the crazy thing, right? Like I came from corporate America where I thought like core values and mission was like, some sort of I was a little bit more cynical around that. So didn't do it the first couple of years and it hurt us. So
yeah. So for a franchisee that doesn't even know where to get started when it comes to like establishing core values and like getting that rolling in their organization, what's a good starting point for them?
Yeah, I think Traction is a great book to read. It kind of gives you the nuts and bolts, and he has a second book called Get a Grip that's more of a story base. That tells you how to implement it in a story format. I think those two books are fantastic and are like must reads for entrepreneurs. I didn't read them till 3 years ago. I've been an entrepreneur for 9 years, and I was just like kicking myself. I'm like, what? Why didn't I read this earlier? Like just light bulbs were going off. And so I would say that would be the number. That would be it. Start there. The number one mistake I see small business owners make though is not paying for someone to help them to do it if they can't do it themselves. I'm lucky I sort of have the skills to be able to do that and self-implement. But even then at Franchise Ramp, more complicated business, we were like, hey, we got to pay an implementer. So I think that's a big piece. And I think the other piece on that is yeah, getting some help if you really need some help and really want to go that approach. And it's a team effort. You can't just create the core values as the owner and say these are our core values. It's really got to come from the entire team, or at least start with your leadership team.
Yeah, and to add to that, for everybody on this call, like, we're resources as well. So like, if you want to learn about EOS, how we implemented in our, in Franchise Ramp, how Pete's doing it in his organization, we're glad to jump on the phone. Like Aaron, Pete, or myself, like, we're all passionate about EOS. So Adrian, tell us a little bit about like your organization and what challenges that we're kind of facing in the Sacramento market when it comes to, employment.
Yeah, kind of the same things. I mean, there's not a ton of people looking for jobs right now, but it's just being really thorough with the people that are coming in, trying to get a hold of them as soon as possible, and trying to find people who want the type of business that we are, want to work for the type of business we are. They want people who are really good business owners they can learn from. I just got off an interview, and that's what she was looking for her current employer. They were just not engaged. And I think the last couple ones, that was the same way. So when they talk to my district manager, she talks about how engaged I am with the business and I'm always available, something that really interests them. They don't really want to like run a business themselves. But as far as like front desk, oh my gosh, it's a revolving door. Front desk is a revolving door. But I just try to focus on the key employees, the managers, the district managers, and the instructors. And the instructors are the hardest people to replace in Pilates. So I have an open communication with those people, and they can come to me at any time. I do most of the instructor contact, not on like a day-to-day basis, but schedule changes, that kind of thing, because I want that connection. It's not that I need to do that. I just want the connection to the instructor so that they know that I care about them, their schedule. Are we doing, they can always reach out to me, and they're just not a number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Adrian does a phenomenal job at that. So just for context for everybody, like, all of our Club Pilates locations are in Sacramento. We live in Austin. So Adrian hasn't been back to Sacramento since pre-COVID. I think like February of 2020 when we opened our 5th location. So staying engaged with the team, like on like really like a day-to-day basis, but not being in the business day to day, is something I think that you bring to the organization and really, really separates you from a lot of franchisees or a lot of business owners, is that engagement. And if something happens, you're always going to jump in and help. So you kind of have two different kind of scopes and scales. Like Adrian's super hands-on, but from afar, and then Pete, kind of running it in a similar way to the way that we operate EOS. And neither of them, that's one of the best lessons that I've got in the last 12 months when it comes to entrepreneurship and business ownership and even leadership. Create the business that works for your style and the one that you want to own and run, not the one that somebody else wants to own and run. Adrian wouldn't want to run Pete's business, and Pete wouldn't want to run Adrian's business, but they're both exceptional operators. So, like I said, one of the big reasons that I wanted to get, both of you guys on the call was so that franchisees who maybe have 1 or 2 locations or are kind of insulated or only a few years into the franchise game, they understand like the best operators in franchising have the same problems you have. And so, that I wanted to take a little bit of a step into mindset. So Pete, how do you handle that kind of struggle, right? To say like, hey, I think I'm an amazing owner. I really care about my employees, yet I still have turnover.
I would run Adrian's organization. I'm sure it's in much better shape than me, or mine. Just want to make that clear. So, and one of the things she mentioned there, I think the one thing I learned at Liberty is like, you always have to be fishing. You always have to have a line in the water. And so we always have ads running for general managers or studio managers, and we always have ads running for instructors. And I have a entire budget like dedicated to recruitment and spending money on Indeed and LinkedIn. And so we're always looking. We pay for resume searches, and we're just pounding the resume searches on Indeed. And this is primarily for instructors because and for studio managers. So I actually had our HR person at Franchise Ramp try to cold snipe some Orange Theory Fitness studio managers. So I told her yesterday, I was like, that's the only thing you beg me not to do ever. She's fantastic. She does anything, figures it out. Laura, if anyone ever interacts with her, she's great. But you always got to be fishing, always fishing. So, I think that's a huge piece, and always looking for talent because, I think in business, we all want to grow and our people want to grow with us. And so they need to know that, hey, in order to grow, we need people. We're in the people business. People are a product. We don't make widgets. And so we need to have great people to do that. So we should always be looking for great people to up our game. So I guess maybe that leads into mindset. That's my mindset. Like I always want to have the best people. I want to work with the best people. And so, I'm always trying to find the absolute best people, that fit our core values, but then actually understand their role and actually want their job. Not just because it's a job, but that they actually want it and that they actually have the capacity and skills to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So Adrian, how do you coach your district manager to deal with this, turnover that we're experiencing in our organization or have experienced in the manager roles?
Well, I'm luckily, our district manager used to be a franchisee, so she understands the struggle. But I think just showing that I'm always there to support her and it is what it is. This is not a business where people are going to stay around for 10 years. I think kind of how I do it is I treat the key people really, really, well. And if they leave, they leave. It's not, you can't get emotionally connected to these people, to your employees, on a really big level, because you'll just be upset every time someone leaves. So, because I used to feel that way when we were a smaller business, but just overall, I think of the business as overall, not any particular studio, any particular employee, just creating a place that people want to work and treating them well. And if they leave, it's because of their problems, not our problems, meaning family changes, whatever, which is the majority of what's happening right now. It's family changes. I can't control that. COVID is driving it, I think. And, but we're getting old employees back. So, I mean, there's good and bad, and you can't think of it like, oh my gosh, people are leaving and nothing's ever going to work good again. No, it's not that at all. You just got to figure out, how to move forward and be at 90% of the staffing, 95% of the staffing you need versus 75,
Yeah, that's a really good insight. I made me immediately go back to my early years in Liberty and how hung up I would get on the fact of a key employee leaving. And I would think oh man, my business is never going to be the same. How am I going to replace that person? And inevitably I would find I would be a better owner and I would have a better idea of what my business needed. And I would replace that person with somebody that ultimately made the organization better. So it's easy to get in that mindset of oh no, now I have to go through this, and instead think this is great. This gives me another chance to fix the mistakes I made in training and hiring that previous person. So having that kind of positive mindset is it's easy to say. It's definitely harder to do, but it's really key, in kind of your fulfillment as a franchisee and a business owner. So does anybody else, Adrian or Pete, do you have anything that you would like to share from a, experienced franchisee perspective, an amazing operator, with the, the franchisees who are, early in their franchisee journey?
Yeah, I really think it's about finding the right people, and people are a product. And so, my first year, I rushed into hiring at Liberty, definitely rushed into hiring people, got the wrong people, was trying to fill seats, and was letting anyone on the bus. Beth, that's her favorite quote now is people, they're either on the bus or off the bus. Or what is it, Beth? We let them on the bus if we're going to hire them at Franchise Ramp. So, I think it's the same thing here, that I think is big is just making sure they're the right fit, and that they actually have a seat on the bus, right? They might be, great for the bus, but we don't have a seat for them because the seat's full. for them. So, you know.
I would say for me, I'm just really trying to dial in availability with people when I'm hiring them, even though they say like, oh yeah, I'm available, like I'm always available. I just like keep pushing it, like until I get something out of them that makes me think that they're not going to be available all the time that I need them. That's one big thing that I'm really trying to work on. And then we actually are, being flexible in our schedule. We're moving intro classes around to give some more flexibility to our managers that want a weekend off every once in a while, and just trying to be more open-minded there. So I think just thinking of it like, oh no, I can't do this because this may really impact my business. No, let's see, let's figure this out. And I'm really good at looking at the numbers every day, and so is my district manager. So we can make those changes as soon as we realize that it's not working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great stuff. And it's been cool to see that like level of flexibility and kind of adaptability to say like, hey, something we've done consistently in this business since 2017, we're going to have to try different things to retain the talent level that we want in the role. Because, it is hard for people to work, nights and weekends, or consistently work nights or weekends. And if the labor pool is small, then, you do kind of have to increase that flexibility level. So great. Well, thanks guys so much for jumping on and sharing that wisdom. So I think it's time to turn it over to Beth and Amber.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian, Peter, and Adrian. That was absolutely amazing and chock full of awesome information. I think Brian mentioned that they're open for emails, and I see we have some Q&As coming through that we will definitely get through at the end. But for now, I would like to introduce Franchisee Success Manager, Director of Franchisee Success, Beth Boley, and Pure Barre owner, Amber Stockdale. And so just a little bit about Amber. She comes from a heavy dance background and lives in Oregon with her husband, 2 children, and a house full of animals. So Beth, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. So Amber has a partner in her business. Her partner's name is Holly. Holly was unable to join the call today, but Amber will be able to take care of it for us. So I first had the pleasure of meeting Amber and Holly back in March of 2020. We actually started pre-sale for Lake Oswego March 3rd. So this means we started it 10 days before the world essentially shut down. So I was able to work with them this entire time. We met every 2 weeks on Wednesday to review their account, talk about how things were going. They faced so many challenges in their first year, but they were able to overcome all of them. Now, just 14 months later, they actually own 3 locations. So it's pretty cool to hear their story. Amber, thank you so much for coming today to share your story with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I can't see most of you, but nice to meet you.
Awesome. So why don't you start by sharing with everybody how you got into franchising and how you chose Pure Barre?
Yeah, so Holly and I have actually been best friends since 6th grade. I've moved away from Montana. She stayed in Montana, but the friendship remained. And when I was pregnant with my first child, I went back to visit, and she brought me into this weird class that she had found. It's like, I think you're really going to like it. With your dance background, it has great music, it has beat, it has choreography. I think you're going to like it. So I went in very pregnant. I was about 7 months pregnant, and moaned and groaned through the entire first class, and got done and was like, that was amazing. Okay, so I need to do this again, and I need to go back to Portland because it's franchise and find one. Well, there wasn't one anywhere near me. So I made do with some other options. And then eventually, a few years later, the opportunity popped up for us to open one in Lake Oswego. And so after going back and forth a lot, discussing, trying to figure out who would do what I could do from here, what she could do from Montana, we decided to go after it. And like Beth said, we started this whole crazy journey right when COVID started. So obviously not exactly the plan that we had in mind. But like most of my staff is now very used to me saying, I look at challenges one of two ways. You can either whine and cry about it and quit, or you can maybe complain a little bit and find a different way to do things. And so we are constantly evolving and finding different ways to do things.
I love that. I love your positive attitude. The entire pre-sale, you guys never complained. You always just were like, we're going to figure it out. The most frequent thing I heard from you on our calls is Don wants us to get more leads. So Don, the pre-sale specialist for Pure Barre, always wanted more leads. So we always had to work hard to try to figure out how to get more leads for you. Tell me a little bit more about your partnership with Holly. I think it sounds amazing to go into a partnership with a best friend, but I'm sure that there are highs and lows involved with that. What would you say is the best thing about the partnership, and what has been the hardest part of it?
So the best thing is definitely how well we communicate. We are on the phone constantly, at least once or twice a day. We definitely tackle things as a team. So, you know, if something pops up, like Peter and Adrian and Brian were talking about with staffing, you know, somebody leaves because they find a full-time job, we hop on the phone and talk it out and try and come up with a game plan together. There's definitely parts that I handle being on the ground, things that she can't handle. She does some more background things. She is a teacher, I am not, so she talks with the teachers a lot. So we've managed to kind of divide and find our unique areas that we can really flourish in to make the business work. Probably the most challenging thing, which we're able to overcome pretty easily, is just we have different ideas about things. But again, this goes back to the whole communication piece. You have to be willing to have some of the hard conversations. You know, it's okay to have different opinions than your business partner. Where you are going to run into trouble is if you're not willing to try and talk it out, or if you're holding on to grudges. That's a recipe for disaster. Yeah,
definitely. What advice would you give someone who's just looking at going into business with a friend or somebody that they know?
Sit down beforehand and clearly figure out what you can do and what they can do. Because if you don't, you will bump heads over certain areas. For an example, Holly and I have bumped heads over retail, which is fine. You know, we got it worked out, but having a clear game plan in place before you kind of go down that path would be really beneficial for anybody that's thinking about going down this road.
That's great advice. So tell me a little bit about your pre-sale with Lake Oswego. So you just get the green light to get started, and then bam, the world shuts down. Tell me, how did you guys handle that, and what did your pre-sale look like?
So obviously our pre-sale looked quite a bit different from how we pictured it. We relied pretty much solely on digital marketing to get those leads to come in. We couldn't do the table setups. We couldn't do the pop-ups, all of the normal things, all of the grassroots type of things that the person you're working with at corporate is going to recommend that you do are not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we just talked with Beth a lot. We made little tweaks to our ads to try and reach different demographics. I mean, if we hadn't had Franchise Ramp and Beth to do the digital marketing, we would have started with, I don't know, maybe like 25 members, as opposed to starting from our soft open with well over 100.
Were you delayed in opening your for your soft open?
We were a little bit, and that again goes back to COVID. A lot of that was because we couldn't have as many construction workers in the space at a time as you normally would. So we had just signed our lease when the world decided to shut down. So as opposed to saying, okay, well, let's hold off, we decided to just forge through. You got to keep moving forward. Even when little things or big things set you back, you have to keep moving forward.
When you were able to open, how many people could you have in the class?
We started out being able to have 10 people in class. And this has since gone up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not up, it's only gone down and then back up. Currently, we can have 8 people in class. At one point, we could only have 6. Now we're back up to 8. We're hoping to get back to 10 soon. So with Lake Oswego specifically, it'll be very interesting because all of our members are not used to what Pure Barre actually is like. They're used to staying in their little box. They're not getting their own equipment. They're not coming into the middle of the room. Hands-on corrections are such a big, important part of Pure Barre. They haven't gotten to experience that. So moving forward, we have a multi-step plan that we've worked agonized over to try and introduce people and get them used to or retrain them into what Pure Barre is all about.
It'll be a little bit of a surprise to them when they get to see the real normal studio experience.
It will.
So where are you at on your member count now at Lake Oswego?
As of last night, we had 215 members.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So you get Lake Oswego up and running and you decide, things are kind of normal. Things are going okay. Let's buy 2 new studios. Tell me how that really went. How did you transition from starting Lake Oswego to deciding to take over the 2 studios in Seattle?
In downtown Portland.
Portland, excuse me.
So we basically did a comparison of what strengths we could get in buying 2 already up and running studios. We knew that we were not willing or had the capacity to bring 2 new studios from the ground up, but these 2 became available. So we looked at all of the gains that we could get versus the downside. And ultimately the strengths that we gathered from having additional studios were more, we run them all as sister studios. So our members can go between all 3. It's great with staff. If we are lacking at one place, somebody gets sick or something, we can pull on the staff from the other studio to hopefully fill in. It's good for retail. We can kind of cycle it through so it seems like it's moving faster, is fresher. It almost does kind of the fear of missing out. If you don't buy it, it might be gone. So there's so many good things that come from having multiple studios. It's definitely a challenge. I'm stretched quite a bit thinner now. My daughter will tell you that I work too much. But it's a good challenge. The 2 new studios need a lot of TLC. COVID really did a number on them, but they came with really good teams, and we are rebuilding in some areas in terms of employees that need a little work, and bringing them a little bit more into how we're running things at Lake Oswego. Because even through COVID, obviously we were able to make it work and do very well. Last month, Lake Oswego had 36 new members. So something is happening correctly. So we just need to get the other 2 studios on the same level in terms of that, and smooth sailing.
I have no doubt that you'll have them up and running smoothly in just a little bit of time. What would you say is the biggest lesson you learned in the last year with everything, all of the ups and downs and everything that went on?
The biggest lesson, definitely having the right team is everything. If you don't have the right people, you're not going to be able to succeed. Things are not going to run smoothly or even semi-smoothly. We work very hard at, we're involved in all of the interview process. So not only are we hiring people that we feel can do the job, but they have to work with the team as a whole at each location.
I love that. It's so important to have a good team. Last question for you. What advice would you give to somebody brand new just starting out with their new franchise location?
Ask for help and don't try to do it all yourself.
I love it. Short, sweet, to the point. Well, thank you so much, Amber. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today to share your story with everyone.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Beth and Amber. That was awesome. We always love hearing franchisees' stories, and this one was particularly unique and inspiring. Please message us in the chat if you have any questions for Beth, Amber, Brian, Peter, or Adrian. And it looks like we do have some questions. Okay, this one's from Brett Stahl. How do you consistently run ads for the GM role without offending your current GM? We are currently a single studio Y6 owner. So I think this could be to anyone on the panel who wants to take that one.
Yeah, I'll take it. I come from it a little bit different way. Like I think it's more about setting a foreseeable future for your team. So, the idea that, hey, we're going to grow, so I always need new positions. District manager, VP of ops, new studio managers. Like what Ed Milet says, your vision needs to be big enough to cover every one of your employees' dreams. And so even though you're a single studio owner, I think you need to sort of think through like what your vision is. Maybe it's to get to 3 studios someday. Maybe it's 2 studios. Maybe it's 10 studios. So like our goal is to have 10 Pilates studios serving 4,000 members by 2025. And 90% of our employees on our last survey were able to reiterate that. And I've talked to many instructors that are motivated by that because that means opportunities to become a lead instructor, to just get more hours, to potentially be a studio manager or district manager. So I think that's big. And maybe if you just are happy with, hey, I just want to own 1 studio, then painting that foreseeable future of what does success look like for that 1 studio? Is it one of the top studios in the country, and you have 700 members, and so that means that, hey, we need this many instructors, and we need a studio manager, an assistant manager, and 2 assistant managers, and maybe 2. So there's a number of ways to set that foreseeable future. But then I think that secondly, without that background, I think if I have a GM that's offended by me looking for other people, then I think I have the wrong person. My district manager currently, who I feel is pretty irreplaceable, it really is replaceable, and she even told me that. And she's the hardest worker I've ever had, and I think that's why she has a mentality that I'm replaceable. So I need to continue to show up to work every day and work really hard.
Awesome. One from Mike Mueller. This is also for Peter. I like the always fishing. I worry about being overstaffed, i.e. no room for a new coach, how to deal with that, lower hours for others. And I think, once again, any panelists could answer that one.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to overstaff. My first year at Liberty, I overstaffed and got destroyed on payroll and lost money, and it was not a good situation. So I've learned that and not to overstaff. And we definitely we've talked a lot about hiring the right people, but we definitely watch payroll. It's a metric we look at weekly and monthly, and we have percentages we want to hit. But I think it just occurs from natural attrition. People leave. The bigger you are, the easier it is to sort of handle those cycles. But even if you're small, you can have some natural attrition. You're obviously going to want to fire the bottom feeders or the growlers or the breathers. And then you're just going to have growth. We're going to need more people as well. So that makes it easier to always be fishing.
Awesome. Anyone else have any thoughts on that one? I think the next question is related to staffing as well. So if we could maybe touch on this one too from Karen Kaiser. How often are you replacing the front desk sales associates? What is the current turnover? How do you reduce that? And is the hourly wage increasing with the current times?
So yeah, it's just kind of a revolving door. I mean, I'm trying to get at least like 1 to 2 solid people per location. I guess we're looking at more of a holistic approach with all our 5 studios. Like we have a certain enough to get everything covered, and have some that are good at sales. The hourly rate isn't increasing because California has minimum wage has all the way gone up to, it'll be 15 this January 1st. But let's see, what was that? Current turnover? Yeah, I think I answered all those questions. Yeah, just looking for solid people, and it seems like you can get a really good member that become a front desk staff. Sometimes that doesn't work, but just like having a varying level of, maybe you have younger people, older people, members. Just trying. Mostly, we try to do referrals from members or for our current employees, and that seems to help a little. But I mean, you just got to understand that attrition is just part of this. I would have never guessed that it would be easier to sell than keep employees post-COVID. I just would never have dreamed that, but that's the situation that we're in. We can sell members, but we can't keep employees.
I'm going to echo Adrian. It's a revolving door. Since opening Lake Oswego, we've had 100% turnover. One of the ways that we're trying to keep employees, we offer commissions and bonuses, which is obviously appreciated. They have to work for it, but it gives them a challenge. You have to know that is part of hiring for front desk. It's sort of a stepping stone for most people in terms of job. It's not something that they want to do forever. And if you have that mindset going in, it's not quite as much of a shock when you find out that they are going to be leaving.
Awesome. Karen has a follow-up on, do you have a minimum number of hours for each of the sales associates that works? 4, 6, 8?
Yeah, I try to do 10, minimum of 10 twice a week. If not, there's really no point of having someone come in for 1 day a week because they'll call out and then they've worked no hours that week. So yeah, but I try to make it even so that you don't have people that are working very little and a lot more.
Our minimum is also about 10.
Awesome. Okay, we have one from Jennifer Robinson, who is the author of the book Traction, and the other book you mentioned. I think even I can answer that one. Is it Gino Wickman? Is that his name?
That's correct.
I'm sure we can send a link in the email that we follow up with to those books. And Mike has a question. Do you have a regular all staff meeting? If so, with mostly part-time employees who have other jobs, and how do you coordinate Zoom call evening, multiple meetings with different groups?
So yeah, it's EOS worldwide in the book's Traction. And I think what you'll find is when you implement it, like you'll have employees like Nick that love Traction. Like he talks about Traction, how great it is. And he has a side business that he's incorporating that into. And so, that's a great operating system, but you can pick other operating systems. You can pick 40X, which is the book we send out to all of our clients. You can pick Scaling Up. There's a number of different ones, but pick something. And I think Traction is a great, simple place to start. So that's the name of the book and by Gino Wickman. And so go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, like, it's not simple for everyone, right? So like, that's why we send out 4 disciplines of execution instead of Traction to our clients is because it's simple for Pete and it's a lot for some people, right? Like, he's a natural integrator to make something like that happen. So four disciplines of execution is a great starting point. If you're not ready for traction, I self-implemented traction in Liberty, and it's a lot. So either book will help you make progress. So.
Yeah.
I don't know that you guys answered the questions that he had though. So regular all staff meetings. I don't have regular all staff meetings. I have management meetings, and then the instructors kind of handle the more in the studio meeting times. So when they're in, they talk to them about what's important based on the manager meetings and that kind of thing.
Yeah. We just, we have a weekly leadership team meeting, and then we have like a quarterly all hands meeting. What I'm really pushing for now this year, and we're actually having pretty good success with it, is our studio managers are having a weekly half-an-hour meeting with each of their sales reps, which has been really good. And they've been talking about in the vein of 4 disciplines of execution, talking about what they can do to move the ball forward on revenue every single day. And so we've seen a lot of success from that. We're actually just starting to get instructors into it too. And so that's been a bit of a mental hurdle for my whole team to get through, because our whole leadership team, because we think of instructors as not being able to show up to meetings, or not wanting to, or not, et cetera, et cetera. And we just started that and have had some success with it. And how we set it up was that there's Zoom calls. So even the studio manager ones with their sales reps are Zoom calls. And anyone can attend, right? It's easy. And so we do the same thing for instructors, and it's once a week, and there's 3 different times. So each of our lead instructors leads one, and they can pick any one they want to go to, but they got to go to one. And we pay them for that. And people have really enjoyed it and liked it. So it's not necessarily mandatory required yet, but it's just strongly encouraged, and we're getting great participation. So it's I wouldn't just say like require all your instructors to do it, because you're going to run into some issues. But as you sort of layer that on, like start with your leadership team who's there all the time and invested all the time, and start to try to layer it on throughout the organization is the approach that we've been using.
We have all staff meetings for all front desk staff meetings when we feel like it's needed. Teachers have all teacher meetings when our lead teachers feel like they are needed. We also pay for them to come to these. We always do Zoom and record it. So if somebody that does have a part-time job can't make it, they can still get the information. While you might have somebody that is taking notes, that's fantastic. However, they might miss what somebody else thinks is a key fact. So being able to go back and watch it afterwards has been really helpful for all of my staff.
Yeah. And to go back to what Brian said earlier, like I'm a huge EOS believer. It changed my life and changed my businesses, and I'll beat that trumpet all the time. But one of our good friends, David, who owns different Club Pilates studios across the country, like he's the exact opposite. He rarely holds a regular meeting, and he's super successful. But he's great at setting a foreseeable future for his team and getting everyone excited. He's that visionary. And so you got to find what works for you, and not just take something, because you can do it either way. You can do it Amber's way, my way, Adrian's way. And they're not our ways, but the ways we've learned. So you sort of need to figure what works for you and how you want to structure your business, because your business is meant to work for you. You're not supposed to work for your business.
Okay, we have one more question, and then we will wrap it up. We have a question for Amber and Adrian. How do you pay out the membership commissions or bonus between the sales associates? Is it based upon the number of hours they work on a given pay period?
So I do it, no, whoever signs the agreement or whoever is writing the agreement gets the commission. I find that payroll is extremely challenging in this fitness world that we're in. So whatever's easiest I'm going to do. And, I get some pushback about sharing, but I just stick with it because I want to do your payroll right. And I'm not going to do it right the more complex we get. So, and it pushes them to actually work intro times, right? So the people, need to be available for intro times, and they're going to make more money when they're there. So it's very important for them to be there. So it rewards that behavior.
We also pay based off of who signs up the member. Karen, I'm not sure what sort of franchise you have. Pure Barre has the different membership options. each option is a different rate. Okay, Pure Barre. So same thing when you pull the reports, it'll on new membership sold, it will tell you it was a 4-pack, it was an 8-pack, it was a Pure Start, it was a Lifestyle. And I have a spreadsheet that I have on my computer that when I pull the reports, I go and make the little ticks for each person's name. And then when I run payroll, I just give them whatever amount those different memberships tally up to. Like Adrian, payroll is complicated. Whatever you can do to make it easier for yourself, highly recommended.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody so much for attending today. The monthly ramp up's goal is to give you a coherent picture of what's happening at the intersection of marketing and franchising. We want this to be a tight-knit community for franchisees to share knowledge and gain insight. Our mission at Franchise Ramp is to help franchisees realize their entrepreneurial dreams. We were tired of working with digital marketing agencies who didn't understand franchising or sales in general. So we took matters in our own hands, became Facebook experts, and added other digital marketing experts to our team. We are the new standard in franchise digital marketing and help clients obtain more quantity and higher quality leads. Please come back and join us again next month.